Sustained as to the question, but withdrawn to rephrase.
Yes, so I'm going to assume there were multiple incidents in Vegas that caused you safety concerns.
Yes.
Can you tell me about the last, maybe like the third one?
Okay, so it was at night. Caitlyn was working that night, and so and this was late at night, so probably like 10 p.m. maybe. But Elowyn and I were on the couch just watching TV. I think Elowyn was asleep at the time, but I heard the doorknob sort of rattling, and and by the way, the living room was right next to the front door, and so I peeked back, and there's some blinds and a window behind me, so I peeked back and pulled the blind back a little bit, and there's a person right there trying to get into the house. So I immediately grab Elowyn and I run upstairs and I set her down upstairs, and I tell her, do not move. And I end up grabbing my gun, going out to the door, and start yelling for the person to get out of here. And they really started banging on the door at that point, trying to get in. At one point, I did end up slightly cracking the door and showing, like flashing the pistol that I had and yelling at him, hey, you really need to get out of here now. At that point, they tried to stick their foot in the door, like kick the door open. I was able to slam it shut on them, lock it again. At that point, that's when I ended up calling the police as I'm standing in front of the door. And within that conversation, they said that they were on their way. I do remember specifically they're asking about the gun because I told them that I had one out, and I specifically told them I'd put it away when they arrived. But it took them about 30 minutes to get there, and by that time this person had left, and so they did eventually show up. I walked outside with Elowyn and just sort of talked to him a bit. We tried to get some Ring doorbell camera footage, but we ended up not being able to see anything.
But the police didn't respond in time to address the threat or catch the person.
No.
At some point, did you and Caitlyn decide to leave Las Vegas?
So, yes. She didn't really like Nevada. I did, but I basically was saying, okay, if you don't want to live here, convince me where we should move. And over the course of probably about a year and a half, we went over just a bunch of different places to move to. But she had suggested early on about New Hampshire, specifically because her Aunt Brenda lived here, and she thought she could get work through her. And that was eventually what we decided on.
When were you planning to move to New Hampshire?
So this would have been, at the time we were renting a house, and our lease was going to be up August 1st. So that was going to be the time.
August 1st of what year?
Oh, this would have been 2023.
What steps had you taken together to move to New Hampshire?
So we had been talking about it for a long time, but we closer to it, I ended up ordering some pods, like U-Haul storage pods that they bring to the house, and then you pack them up and they ship them out. But I had ordered some pods, brought it to the house, or had it being brought to the house to pack up all our stuff and eventually move there.
Did you think that you and Caitlyn had agreed on a plan to move to New Hampshire?
Yes,
And whose idea was it?
Caitlin's.
Would you have been happy to stay in Nevada?
Yes.
How were you planning on getting to New Hampshire?
So the plan was for me to basically drive, and I had a very long road trip planned out. Actually, I had two planned out because I had a southern route and a northern route. But Elowyn and I driving out, and then Caitlyn and Vaelyn would then fly out.
Why were you going to drive with Elowyn while Caitlyn flew with Vaelyn?
I guess specifically, I didn't think Vaelyn at that point, she would have been about 6 months old. I didn't think that she or really anyone would be able to handle a long road trip.
I think I skipped an important event in your life here. When was Vaelyn born?
Oh, that was January 17th, 2023.
And Vaelyn is your and Caitlyn's child?
Yes.
Was she born in Vegas?
Yes.
And so your plan was for 6-month-old Vaelyn to fly to New Hampshire with Caitlyn while you drove with Elowyn?
Yes.
Did the four of you move to New Hampshire in August 2023 as planned?
No.
What happened instead?
So before the pods I'd ordered have arrived, a different set of pods showed up, and I was upstairs at the time, and I heard a truck outside and was confused about what was going on. I didn't know if there was pods were there, if they were just coincidence that it was someone else's pods, or if ours had arrived early. But anyways, I go downstairs to go check on it, and Caitlyn is in the kitchen, and I tell her, hey, there's pods outside. I'm going to go check out what they're about. And she says that they're hers. And this was really the first time I found out that no, she was not going to New Hampshire, that she was going back to Minnesota.
And had you been aware that Caitlyn was planning on going back to Minnesota?
No, that was the moment I found out.
What did you do when you found out that Caitlyn was going back to Minnesota?
I was pretty distraught. I didn't understand it. I was pretty upset just about how and why she was breaking up the family. I didn't understand it.
Did you and Caitlyn come up with a plan about what would happen with the kids when she went back to Minnesota?
No. So I was trying to talk to her about it, about what the plan was. And again, just being really distraught about.
All right, we've reached the top of the hour. We have to get in a break. We're hitting the pause button. You won't miss a moment. Our thanks to former Deputy Public Defender out in LA County, Philip Dubé, for being with us this hour. When we come back, this defendant's going to talk about an incident where he believed Caitlyn had already kidnapped his wife. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae, and we are watching together a defendant on the stand in his own defense out in New Hampshire. Key testimony in a case. We're calling it the Amber Alert murder trial because of what happened after the shooting death of Caitlyn Naffziger. She was the girlfriend of the defendant, Dustin Duren, and he claims that he acted in self-defense the day that he shot her once in the head. This happened back in February of last year. He says that she was threatening to kidnap their two daughters, so he shot her and then took the girls for himself or with him. The police then issued that Amber Alert the very next day. They were able to locate him, and he did turn himself in. Children were found safe nearly 200 miles away, and he's telling his own story now on the stand. He spent a lot of time letting this jury know about his own experience with firearms, that he was a Marine, that he has experienced PTSD and some mental health challenges, and now he's talking about what is leading up to this friction between him and his partner, that she has wanted to break up their family and he didn't know. Let's pick it up right where we left off.
What was going on? Was she going to just go back by herself, and she's going to leave the kids with me, or is she trying to take both, or are we splitting the kids? And any one of those options I didn't really like, but she just wasn't responding. She just wouldn't have that conversation with me.
What happened when Caitlyn went back to Minnesota?
So she ended up just going outside with the stroller, like she was going to the park.
Who was in the stroller?
Vaelyn. So Elowyn was at daycare at this point. She was in like a preschool daycare kind of thing. And so she took Vaelyn out into the stroller and just was kind of walking like going to the park, and which was normal. I mean, we went to the park all the time, so that seemed like a normal thing. She didn't take anything. She just left like she was going to the park. And a couple hours go by, and she hadn't come back, or I didn't hear anything. So I ended up going to the park, and no one was there. So I texted her, "Where is she?" And she responded that she was at the airport with Vaelyn.
Had Caitlyn previously told you that she was taking Vaelyn to the airport?
No.
And did Caitlyn tell you where her and Vaelyn were going to go once they got to the airport?
Well, they were going to Minnesota.
Had Caitlyn told you she was taking Vaelyn to Minnesota?
No.
Had you given permission for Caitlyn to take Vaelyn to a different state?
No.
What did you do when Caitlyn told you that she was at the airport with Vaelyn about to take your child to a different state?
So I freaked out. I immediately drove to Elowyn's daycare because I wanted to see if she had grabbed Elowyn too. And so I went there, and no, she wasn't. Elowyn was still at the daycare. So I picked her up and then sped to the airport. And as I was doing that, I was calling my parents. I called her dad, Rob, just trying to figure out what was going on. And it seemed like no one knew what was going on.
Did you talk to Caitlyn again that day?
So eventually I did get her on the phone, and this was while I was still driving, and she said she wasn't going to come back through security because, and I started telling her I at least want to say goodbye to Vaelyn, and for her to at least say goodbye to Elowyn. But she just said she wasn't going to go back through security. And eventually, I guess I just gave up on it and turned around and headed back to the house.
When you headed back to the house, did you talk to anyone else? Or did you continue to talk to other people about what to do?
Well, yes. So I ended up trying to figure out just basically what to do, but I was talking to like my family and Caitlyn's family just about what was happening and what the plan should be. I figured, well, okay, if we're not going to New Hampshire, I'll just stay in Nevada because I just like Nevada. I like the desert. I like being there, so I figured I would just stay in Nevada. But they were all both my family and her family, they're all trying to convince me, hey, come back to Minnesota. We'll all be together. We'll all try and figure this out together. And really, I didn't make up my mind until July 31st, really the day before I left. And because I had already had an apartment secured in Vegas, a new apartment. And, yeah, I eventually decided to go back to Minnesota, really on the point that I did not want Elowyn and Vaelyn to grow up separately. That really bothered me.
How did you get back to Minnesota from Vegas?
So Elowyn and I, we made a nice road trip out of it. Spent several days with a friend of mine in Utah and just doing this whole road trip. That was just this another incredible bonding experience. Yeah.
Once you got back to Minnesota, where did you live?
So I ended up moving back in with my parents.
What about Caitlyn? Where did she live?
So she was living with a friend of hers.
How far apart was where you lived and where Caitlyn lived?
If I'm remembering right, it was about an hour and a half.
Where were the girls? Where were Elowyn and Vaelyn living when you were both in Minnesota?
So we were splitting custody to where there'd be times to where she was with Caitlyn. The girls were with Caitlyn, and then times where they were with me and my parents.
Who were they with more?
I think the total number came out to be 98 days with me and my family, 48 days with her, and then a random 15 days to where the kids were split for whatever reason.
When the kids were moving between the two households, how did they get from one place to another?
So I would normally drive, which I was fine with doing, but I would just drive and drop them off, or drive down there and pick up the girls. But eventually we ended up figuring out a restaurant to kind of meet in the middle, and then that generally became our spot to exchange the girls.
Did you try to come up with a more permanent plan for where the four of you would live?
So yes, specifically in October, I had a meeting at the same restaurant that we would normally meet at with Rob, her dad, and we tried to plan out, or basically, okay, I asked her just point blank of, hey, can we just continue our trip to New Hampshire? And she immediately said yes, and which kind of surprised me because I thought I would have to try to convince her somehow, but she just immediately said yes, and from that point on, that's when we started planning to eventually continue the move that was planned to New Hampshire.
Just gonna ask a couple clarifying questions. You said this meeting was sometime around October. Was this October of 2023?
Yes.
And then you said you asked if you could continue your trip. By that, did you mean your move to New Hampshire?
Yes.
Were the four of you going to live together in New Hampshire?
I would not have been opposed to it. I'm just someone who's really big on the nuclear family, and I feel like it's really, really important for children to grow up with both parents in the household together, everyone living together. And so I would not have been opposed to it, but at first the plan was that we would live separately.
And when did you decide to, or when did you plan to move to New Hampshire?
So this was October, so we were deciding that we would wait until after all the holidays, and so like Halloween, Thanksgiving, Elowyn's birthday on December 2nd, and then Christmas, New Year's, and then Vaelyn's birthday on January 17th. So we'd wait for after all the holidays, spend the rest of the time with family, and then after Vaelyn's birthday, then to start the move.
We're going to slip in a break. You hear the defendant there saying he cares a lot about the nuclear family, but yet he is the one who split up their nuclear family by shooting the mother of his children in the head.